Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Michelle Horneff-Cohen. Mrs. Mitchell, how are you doing, ma?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mitchell. Firstly, you are the creator of the compost collector. Can you please, Mrs. Mitchell, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Mitchell?
I'd love to. Thank you. So, I was a residential property manager for over 25 years in San Francisco, and we've had curbside composting required for over a decade. And it was near impossible to get my tenants to compost. So, I came up with this invention called the compost collector, which is a fully compostable vessel. It sits on the kitchen counter for up to 7 days. It collects the organic waste. And then on garbage day, where we have curbside pickup of our green waste, you just toss the whole thing. So it makes it super easy for people to compost.
This inventing is very, very beautiful. Even I myself in the kitchen, I know how easy that thing is. Just throw it there and throw it away. Honestly speaking, thank you so much, Mrs. Mitchell. And I also like to dive to the point of organic waste, which is what you've invented to help every single person in the kitchen today. What do you think is organic waste from your own experience, and why do you think it is important one should manage it properly, Mrs. Mitchell?
It's a great question. So we I don't know if we coined the term or not, but we like to think of organic waste as anything that was once alive. So it can go into your organic waste. So it breaks down within 30 to 60 days back to its original or organic state, if you will, into compost. So the end product is going to be compost and then compost byproducts, um, which just goes back into the earth. So it's the organic matter of your food scraps. It could be your hair. It could be your pet fur. It could be the yard waste from the trees and the leaves and all of that. When you have dead flowers that you've had a bouquet and they die, that all goes into the natural regenerative process of composting.
That is very, very important. Composting is very, very important. Just to know how to, have this organized waste and having the understanding of it is very important in our time today. And I also like to ask how it also affects environmental issue like climate change. We do not know if organic waste really affects climate change and stuff like that. And what do you think are the best practices? Even from what you've invented, it is very, very important for someone to have such at home for you, someone who used to decompose. But what do you think are also the best practices for composing organic waste at home and also in the community, Mrs. Mitchell?
So it absolutely affects the planet. So what
Mm.
happens is when we send our garbage, our trash, our waste into the landfill, right? When the organic matter is in there, it creates much higher levels of methane, which get emitted into the atmosphere, which are like 20, 30 times higher than carbon dioxide. So it's important that we divert our organic matter away from the landfill when we're using that waste technology. So there's the landfills, there's incineration, which is also horrible for the environment. But when we're talking about, that tomato that's rotting, it's going to emit higher levels of methane in the landfill, which is just horrible for all of us. So if we can get that out of the landfill and not even send it into the landfill to begin with, and then turn it into this black gold of composting, which enriches the soil, it's so much more important. So from that perspective, getting it out of the landfill is going to be important. Best practices in our homes is one, by using the compost collector. You can use, you know, many people use plastic caddies on their kitchen counter or stainless steel or ceramic crock pot type of vessels to collect all of the food scraps. You could have a backyard composting pile and do it yourself. But where the trend is going now, California is the first state in the U.S. to have a mandatory curbside pickup program. Other local jurisdictions have implemented mandatory composting curbside pickup programs. All five boroughs in New York went live in October. Um, Austin, Texas. So there's a lot of different localities that are implementing this um, methodology, curbside pickup, to make it easier for our communities to compost. So I see that as being the trend moving forward.
We hope, absolutely hope it continues to
Yes.
emerge like that because that is very, very important. Having this waste to have it as something that could help the surrounding is going to be very, very important in the life we come for. And I also like to go to the point of technology. We do not know if there are technologies that also help in organic waste. I do not think there are, but what do you think are the new technologies you feel like they are really, really helping in the organic waste or method that are being developed to manage organic waste more efficiently, Mrs. Mitchell?
Well, we're seeing a lot more composting facilities be established and all of the technology around that with the machinery, the shredders and the chippers and the grinders of all of that. So on the technology side, we're seeing it really more at the locations, at the stations where they're processing this compost. The other thing is getting the compost there, right? So with the haulers and the machinery, of the specialized trucks that pick it up that are organically focused in order to transport it from the curbside programs into the facilities to be processed. And then hauling it out to a location where it's not in an urban environment and away from people because of the smell. Although, if your compost is being produced properly, it really doesn't smell all that bad. So it's that entire like process. But then being able to take that finished product and use it for the communities if they want to use it for their gardening at their homes. But even when we look at places like Pasadena, California, and the Rose Bowl, they're using their compost as just in the turf and all of the regenerative kind of landscaping. Um, Compost is also really great for backfilling when we're talking about like landslides and the backfill. So it can be used for a lot of things and it keeps the water in. So it's a really great resource from that standpoint of enriching the soil that's there to hold more moisture. So um, from that standpoint, as far as the technology goes, we're kind of working, the industry is kind of working towards all of those ends.
That is going to be very, 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 very great because it's really, really help in getting those track, getting those disposal and stuff, helping every single disposal to also, be more valuable in one way or the other. I think that would be very, very impressive. And I also like to dive to the point of policies, Mrs. Mitchell, and also incentive that, things that you feel like government can also implement that could also help or I know you're doing your own part, helping this organic waste, but what you feel like, policies or things that you think government can also do to also implement and make this thing more better. What policies or incentive do you think government could implement to also encourage better organic waste practices, Mrs. Mitchell?
So, one is what we were just talking about by implementing curbside pickup programs. Part of the process is that a lot of what we do waste wise, we have three bins where I'm located. So it's the landfill, and then it's the recycling, and then it's the green waste or the organics. So it's really an education standpoint. So lots and lots of education. I'm in San Francisco, California, and we've been composting for over a decade with the curbside program. But statewide in California, it just went live in 2022. So it's a huge, and even in San Francisco, not everybody's doing it. It's a disgusting process that's messy and gross and smelly, and nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to take that plastic bucket that they've been putting all of their waste in all week long and then schlep it someplace else, dump it out. And ours is in our garage because we're pretty much landlocked in our urban environment. So it's in our garage, and then I open that up and I get hit with a face full of fruit flies and bugs. It's just the whole process is really gross. So trying to make it as easy as possible for people with tools that they'll use. And sadly, where we've seen the most compliance at the onset with these programs is when the municipalities and local jurisdictions actually impose fines for not diverting properly. So, and the diversion is, not separating your overall waste accordingly. So it's really putting that what should be in landfill, and your recycling in the recycling bin, and your or green organics and your yard waste in the green bin, and just getting people to do it. So, there's talk of the garbage police that are really those cameras as far as technology that get attached to the larger bin that the waste is getting and can see in when the lid comes up and down if you're actually diverting correctly or not. But it's the tools that the municipalities, the education, the tools, and actually implementing programs for people to do it. But sadly, sometimes people need that monetary incentive that they're going to get fined if they don't do it correctly. So unfortunately, we're not at that stage statewide right now. We're still in the education phase in California of the municipalities launching their programs. And then probably in a few years, we'll see fines kicking in for people not doing it correctly. But I can tell you anecdotally right now, I was at a conference a few weeks ago and with a booth with the compost collector. And it said, "Are you SB 1383 compliant?" on my banner. And people are like, what's that? And they still don't know. So it's really, we're in that education stage. So the municipalities, the local governments need to educate their communities a lot better.
I think educating would definitely go a long way. Getting them educated is going to prepare them to get this thing packaged very well so that they could dispose this thing in the right way, and also get more pick-up station would definitely help in one way or the other. And in the future time, as you said, maybe a fine could come in so that this thing could be organized more better and to make the surrounding just more cleaner. And I also like to dive to the point of communities. What you feel like communities too can also do for themselves. How do you think people can also get involved in advocating for better organic waste management in also their community? Community also play a good role in this thing, Mrs. Mitchell.
It's a great question as far as the communities, and it really starts educating at the elementary level, right? So getting into the schools with the kids and teaching them how to compost and separate their food scraps appropriately is going to be the beginning. The other thing is talking with manufacturers about these products, the chip bag that's not compostable, and getting more into more items that are more reusable. There's the communities of the refillers community. So instead of buying something new, you take your container in and have it refilled, whether it be cooking oil or, the liquids and the solids. So there's that whole side of things, getting involved in your community to a point of educating people, but also where the communities are getting out that education, whether it be at the school level, whether it be at the local clubs or community churches, what have you, but really getting the word out of how all of it works and then having tools. So whether it's the compost collector or the plastic tub or a backyard tumbler is another way of getting the communities together. So there are some places that don't have mandatory composting, but they do have community groups where there may be a community composting facility or a location that is like a garden center or a local, city block that they've used to do gardening as a community project. And part of that community garden has a composting location. So community members bring and dump in their compost, their organic waste to be composted. So there's a lot of different things that community can do at all different levels and all different ages to encourage people to compost to get the methane out of the landfill.
Yes, we do know that community is not really like before, but community will really help. If one can join their hearts together, get this thing in a place and get it this, it's really, really help. It makes the work more even easier for the ones who wants to take it away, and that will definitely bring the youth development. We hope it happens in the coming future. And I will also, there's a question I normally ask Mrs. Mitchell during the end of the show from the forefathers. There are a lot of things that do exist during our forefathers' time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Mitchell, what do you think that thing would be, Mrs. Mitchell?
Bring back from our forefathers. We've made so many technological advances, but I really think it's more along the lines of decorum in our communities and being able to believe the science, if you will, and have conversations around these topics where it doesn't become politicized or political at all. So, I think that's what I would just like to be able to have these conversations of how we can better our planet without it turning or devolving into something that it doesn't really need to be.
Yes, having this communication to give this development to our community is very, very important. That makes every single one of us to live in a very happy and most peaceful surrounding. And I also want to use this opportunity to thank you for this opportunity on speaking on this organic waste. These are things that every single day, even I myself, it happens every single day. We have to just know how to dispose what we have so we won't make the world to be polluted. Thank you so much for the time and the opportunity, Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
All right. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Mitchell. Bye
You too.
bye.
Bye bye.